Hello, class. This is the full online version of our 7th class in database marketing. And you will be required to go through this and complete everything, submit quizzes, submit comments and things where it's called for by the end of April. And this content will be covered not on the midterm, but on the final exam. So let's get going. This is the email that I sent you guys. And by the way, if you hear barking and strange sounds that sound like a dog, that's because I have my pug sitting here at my side. Every time somebody goes by in the hallway, she has to do her job and let them know that, certain things are permitted and certain things are just not permitted outside of my apartment. So, because of the snow day, I could not cover this content within an existing class, so that's why we're doing it online. Just to kind of lay out things in general. Going through this should take an hour and a half or so. We're going to be 3 basic learning modules of new content. There's going to be a quiz after each one of those, and you're also going to be asked to participate in some kind of online debates, ethical discussions, and things like that. So there will be key things for you to submit at the end of April. And I just want to underline that everything you submit from this class is going to count very heavily towards your class participation grade, which is 20% of your final grade. So please give this your attention, get this done, and do a good job on it. So this is our agenda. We're going to start by reviewing the last class, which was on March 14th, believe it or not. And a key part of that is I want to continue our ethics discussion, and I want to continue our debate on Remington, whether they should stop making the military-style assault weapon. And then there's going to be another smaller issue, much smaller issue, a real workplace issue that I pulled from a case study I found online. We're going to also have a discussion of that, and you're going to be asked to record your comments and post them and comment on other people's comments. We're then going to have a quiz on chapters 14 and 15 from your book, and then we have the 3 new learning modules. One is customer acquisition using databases. Other is customer loyalty using databases. Then we're going to talk about research with an eye towards getting you ready to do some at least subject line research for your database project. And then your team meetings, when you're back from holiday, I want you to do 1 week's worth of team meetings using online resources. So using Skype or Google Hangouts. I want you to have a full team meeting, and then someone please submit me a meeting report per the requirements that I've outlined earlier. So that is the agenda. Again, it should take about an hour and a half. So the first thing I want you guys to do is please remember the lecture we got from Paul Davis. He was in his home in Florida. It looked like it was his study. You may recall he did have to close the door because there were wandering young people around there. But I want you please to take a moment, and you are going to pull up a Word doc. I want you to put your name on it, and I want you to type down 3 things you learned from the Paul Davis lecture. And you recall that I basically asked him a lot of questions about what he did in different projects with databases, asked him about what it's like to be a data scientist, what is a data scientist, etc. So please write down 3 things you learned from Paul Davis. I'm now going to stop because somebody... Okay, so that was a very important call from a phony phone number that looked like a real phone number. It was a recording telling me that my daughter's student loan has been forgiven. Press 1 to be connected to the office, or 9 to be removed from the list. I think you can probably guess which one I picked. that's a case of some annoying database marketing. Okay, so what we want to do now is somehow jumped ahead here to 800 Flowers. Now let's go back, and I want you to think back about Paul Davis again. You may recall that the last question I asked him had to do with Cambridge Analytica, and I had been reading quite a lot about them. This is before all the news about them hit, and had just been kind of intrigued, frankly, by the boasts that they made about how they could look at behavioral data and psychographic information and predict how different people would react to certain issues, and that they then could change communications and headlines and messaging about the issues and influence these people somehow to vote a certain way or think a certain way. And I asked Paul about it. I was kind of interested to see if he knew about some kind of secret sauce that they had, or if he knew anything about them. And his response was basically that politics is sort of a dirty game, and that as far as he knew Cambridge Analytica, he hadn't heard of them having anything special. But, of course, we have learned since then that Cambridge Analytica was involved with Facebook, and that through kind of a glitch in Facebook's policies, whereby I guess a professor asked Facebook for permission to run some kind of research and let Facebook users download an app. This professor was able to not only get the data from everybody who downloaded the app, but evidently, from what I've read, also got the data from all their friends. So this somehow supposedly has turned into 50 million, detailed Facebook profiles with likes and postings and all kinds of information. And supposedly Cambridge Analytica was able to use those data to do as the basis for the psychographic targeting that they claim to have been able to do. And as you know, that's now caused a lot of embarrassment for Facebook, etc. So I have loaded up a video. I want you guys to pause now and take a look at the video. It's from MSNBC and was done a week or so ago, and kind of details what's been happening, at least as of then, with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. So take a minute, look at that, and then come back and join again. Okay, the second thing we talked about, other than the lecture from Paul Davis, we spent some time with me showing you an actual recommendation that I had prepared working with Hive, and the website is thinkhive.com. It's an example of some very bad branding, by the way, because Hive, H-Y-V-E, is not an ownable trademark. There are lots and lots of companies called Hive, spelled like this and spelled like the regular beehive. You can't get hive.com. That was probably gone, 20 years ago. And so, in fact, this company, the one I work for, has to call the website thinkhive.com. So, anyway, just a little side note there about some bad branding. I'm hoping, I've already brought it up to them. I'm hoping I can bring it up again and maybe change it, because sophisticated marketers are going to look at that and not think as well of the company as they should. However, on the other side, someone in senior management chose this name, and they obviously like it. So it will be a difficult path for me to tread, trying to bring this up and not, bring the wrath of whatever down on me. But I'll bring it up maybe once and probably keep my mouth shut after that. Anyway. So we have at Hive several partnerships. There's one with Cox Communications. There's another partnership with Comfort Inn, Comfort Hotels. Comfort Inn is one of their brand names. They have 7 or 8 different brands of hotel. They have over 5,000 hotel properties in the U.S. as well as some international properties. So they're a pretty big outfit. And for the first time, we are offering for one advertiser to take an ad above the fold in the reservation confirmation email, which you see here. This is a mock-up that we did with a reservation confirmation email. where we've actually put the ad, the banner ad, which is 650 pixels wide by 150 pixels high. We put it in above the reservation details. So we're showing 1-800-Flowers, giving them a rough idea what an ad would look like. By the way, they would also, of course, want to run an offer in this ad, and they would also, of course, want to have a link to their website or to a landing page that repeated the offer. This was the spreadsheet that shows different scenarios in terms of what they could expect to get in terms of business from these emails. I definitely recall, I think it was Ms. Schwartzmiller that pointed out that there were some mathematical errors on this chart, and she was, of course, correct. This has since been fixed. And looking at this chart, just look at the first column, please. And let's just quickly go through this because I want you guys to get a sense of what kinds of things are looked at in terms of success and what kind of rates are regarded as pretty standard and sort of, how the whole thing works, because it all boils down to math. So the email goes to 4.5 million people per month. You see that up on top. The send times 1,000, so it's 4,500 times 1,000 is 4.5 million. 90% of the recipients open the email. Now, what we are projecting on the sort of worst case scenario for 800-Flowers is that 1% of the people who open the email will click on the 1-800-Flowers link and go to their landing page. And we're then projecting, again, conservatively, we hope, that 2.5% of the people who click will purchase something from 800-Flowers. Their average order is $70. And so we are projecting it's 1,012.5 actual sales from 1-800-Flowers.com. And when you multiply that times $70, you get $70,875 would be the revenue. Now, average cost of goods sold, we got from their quarterly report, $41 and something. So their estimated margin, the operating margin, which is total revenue minus cost of the goods, is about $30,000. And if you keep reading down, you'll see that we also estimated the off-email multiplier effect, which we have talked about before. We're saying that they're going to get 2 times the sales. They'll get another $70,000 in sales from people who call an order or who order a week or so from now or who go into the store and buy. But the email would have caused it, but there'll be no way to directly trace it to the email. But we know from experience that 2 times direct sales is a pretty fair estimate for the off-email multiplier. But then when you deduct the cost of goods sold from that, from the whole thing, you end up with 800-Flowers netting about $60,000. Now, the next columns over have different click-through rates, different purchase rates, where you start to see 800-Flowers really make a lot of money. And just want to remind you that we had been asking 800-Flowers, which you'll see on the next slide, for $45,000 a month as a minimum guarantee. You'll see that in the third point here. And the choice client believes that this is a unique kind of premier opportunity, that because of the high open rate and also because, think about what you do when you get a reservation confirmation email. You usually are paying some attention to it. You're not just sort of skimming through it. You're actually, you're involved, you're engaged with it. So we believe the quality of this media vehicle is such that choice can demand a minimum. So they would look at the $45,000 minimum. They would look back at the chart we did, and then they would, of course, based on their own experience with, what they get in similar kind of vehicles, they'll have to make up their mind whether it's worth paying $45,000 or whether they want to offer us some less than $45,000. So we're actually in the midst of negotiating with them right now. Hasn't been resolved yet. they're definitely interested.